Hello again, everyone. Tom Nagorski in the Cipher Brief virtual studio, where we continue to take stock of all the developments involving the United States, Russia, Ukraine. And we do so today with a view and a perspective from Ukraine, from Kiev, and a former advisor to both the Ministries of Defense and Interior in Ukraine. Tamerlan Vahabov joins us from Kiev. He has a long background in defense and security in the private and public sectors, I should say. And Tamerlan, it's great to have you with us. These are very unusual times, I guess is one way to put it. But I thought I'd just start by asking you a broad question, and we can get to some specifics in a moment. We're trying, as I said, to take stock and to understand the impact of the almost daily headlines, most of them coming from Washington, about the war in your country, the negotiations, and so forth. But what is it like from your standpoint? We had somebody on, by the way, from the parliament in Ukraine the other day who said, Ukrainians go to sleep at night worrying a little bit about the front lines, of course, but also worrying or wondering what the next news is going to be from the administration. What is it like from your perspective?
Hello, Tom. Nice to see you too, and hi, everyone. Well, it is true. I will share the concerns and the comments by the member of parliament, I believe the Ukrainian parliament. Yeah, of course, we do have a lot of concerns on what's going on in the front line because things are not great there, and they haven't been great for quite a while, unfortunately. And the other concern for civilians in all the major cities and urban settlements of Ukraine is regular shellings by the Russians with both drones and cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and that can inflict a lot of damage to the civilian infrastructure and take a lot of lives. So this is another concern that is, like, I think, topping everything. But the new thing on top of that is, of course, current U.S.-Ukrainian relationship, which is at its test moment right now. And of course, we are all concerned, and we don't know what to expect because there are a lot of at stake. And I'm one of the firm believers that the United States assistance and aid and constructive and dynamic and rigorous relationship with the United States is of utmost importance for Ukraine and for, I will actually say that, for Ukraine's survival right now during the active phase of the war. Of course, our brave soldiers are there, and we have a lot of European partners, but we cannot just say that we can do it on our own. So yes, of course, it is for all the sane-minded people. It's in both countries, I think, interest, especially Ukraine's, that we keep it on a constructive, let's say, frequency rather than see what's going on now. So yeah, it is very concerning.
We've had, just in the last few days, it seems like if you were to make a chart or something, one day seems like terrible news for President Zelensky and the Ukrainians generally. And I'm talking now about the U.S. relationship. And then it seems a little bit better. And then there's another rough thing. We don't have to go through all these. Where do you? What's your own level of confidence, or what you and your friends and colleagues right now in terms of where all this can end up? Do you think that does it feel like a long-standing break, or does it feel like something that might be fixed and patched up pretty soon?
Well, it's something in between. I think both administrations should finally stop this aggressive rhetoric towards each other. I will not be taking sides right now on this part because it had been quite emotional. And I think at this juncture, we should refrain from that. And my firm and my colleagues and my like-minded people's firm belief is the common sense will prevail at the end, because both countries understand, and it's on the table, it's obvious that there are things we cannot just put aside and start just verbal attacks and some I don't know, some threats, that showcases that we saw in the White House. I mean, again, I will not be blaming and putting my finger at anyone, but that was not very nice, let's say, to see. And of course, there are a lot of things at stake: the U.S. aid, our military operation there, or mineral resources deal, ceasefire agreement, everything has a lot of details and nuances. It's just words. So both administrations, our belief is, will finally come to that because it's obvious. You cannot miss it. All those
Hmm.
things that are there. And I mean, my answer will be very simple. Common sense should prevail, and I believe so. This will happen. I mean, there is no other way to do it. It cannot go on forever. This bursts of emotions and words
Yep.
exchange.
Recognizing excellence in national security, the Cipher Brief Honors Dinner celebrates those who've made a real difference in protecting our nation. It's an unforgettable evening with top leaders in the field. Join us in honoring these remarkable contributions. Reserve your seat now at cipherbriefhonors.com.
And Tamerlan, speaking just in very practical terms, I mentioned that you had been an advisor to the Ministry of Defense, I believe, to the director of the Defense Procurement Agency. So you know a thing or two about defense procurement. And of course, we've had the other day the news that the United States, as part of this dispute, cutting off military aid and intelligence sharing. But on the military supply front, again, a similar question, but a specific one. How is that immediately impacting the war, or is it a matter of it's only going to be an impact if it goes on for a long time?
I cannot give you like the exact time frame when it will be like acutely felt on the front line, but I mean, our army and the Minister of Defense and army headquarters that are responsible for logistics, of course, we have reserves, and according to our officials, recently we have the stockpiles from 3 to 6 months to withstand the front, but the attacks. But as common conventional wisdom goes, of course, every month will be more and more difficult. It is difficult now, but with each month it will exacerbate because we will be running out of supplies. There are several reasons to that. If you want, I can like expand this a little bit more. All the European stockpiles on artillery shells and mortar bombs and their production capacity is overbooked or depleted.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we have bought almost everything from there, whatever they had, like when it comes to conventional weaponry and ammunition. And we do not have a replacement for Patriot missiles, let's say, which are
Right.
important to guard our cities and civilians, because it's like the number one priority right now to stop people from dying, let's say, from those attacks. And Europe still doesn't have its own equivalent of the Patriots, and the only facility they are building in Germany, Germans are building facility for missiles and for air defense systems. These are enhanced GEM missiles, it's like guidance enhanced missiles,
Mm-hmm.
but their unlock facility will be ready only in 2027. So basically, same goes for the most efficient howitzers on the front line, 777. And we all know that is like a joint British and American product. And if you don't have that, and especially if you cannot replace its barrels, they get worn out. And at some point, we'll have just tulips there out of those howitzers. And so a lot of problems with Bradley, with M113. I don't want to get in too much into technical details. Yeah. But with maintenance facilities, spare parts, it will all be cut off. I mean, yeah.
And you started to answer this question, I guess, but there's been, at the same time that all these American commitments have been in question, there has also been almost a daily bulletin from somewhere in Europe of one more country saying, we stand with Ukraine. There's another pledge, hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars. Today it's the Norwegians, the other day it's the Germans, and so forth. As a moral thing and then as a practical thing, mm-hmm. How much weight do you give to the European commitments like those?
Well, I mean, politically, of course, this is something good to have. That's for sure. But when it comes to their practical aspect of it, as I said, partially the Europeans are covering our needs. It's like around 25-30%. Another 25-30 maximum is covered by Ukraine itself. But if the US stops the military support, it will also affect European deliveries as well, because I would say around 30 to 40% of European defense industry companies have some US participation there,
Right.
either in the private companies or critical imports like Swedish aircraft, like Eurofighters, et cetera, et cetera. They have their components coming from the United States. Howitzers, like tanks, main battle tanks in Southern and Central Europe are based on General Dynamics, United States companies, European branch, General Dynamics Europe. Of
Hmm.
course, they banned that. We cannot buy that. And third problem with Europe is the scale. European Union is not still yet there to reach the defense autonomy from the defense industry autonomy from the United States. The most advanced country when it comes to the defense autonomy is France inside the European Union.
Hmm.
But even its capabilities are not the match to the United States. So let's say there are several examples where where I was involved during the war. I've been involved. It's like TRF-1 howitzers. Let's say most of them are in bad condition because it's an old product, and we only have like 10 of them right now in the front line. And this is 155 howitzer. Same goes for AMX. It's tracked infantry fighting vehicle, or VAB. It's a French BTR type with wheels. Same armored like personnel carrier APC. We have very few of them actually. I mean, compared to Bradley or M1103, etc. And France cannot scale up its production. It can cover
Hmm.
its needs, but it cannot go further than that to basically make money supplying other armies, its own army, and plus helping Ukraine. This
Right.
is they're pretty far from that. And as an example, I can tell you recently, Romania and Poland did not buy European main battle tank. They ordered it from the United States Abrams.
Mm.
So a lot of problems like this.
Yeah. Let's switch for a moment in the time we have left, Tamerlan, if we could, to talk about this minerals
Sure.
deal, which, it wasn't really on the radar until I think it was actually Mr. Zelensky, if I'm not mistaken, who first raised it. But can you um, help us to understand from, again, the Ukrainian perspective, what is good about this for Ukraine potentially, and what concerns do you have that might worry you about the deal as we think it stands right now?
It's a good question. Uh, we Ukrainians, we have divided opinions, and we have various like opinions on that. I mean, but my take as an insider, I think someone who has been working for the Ukrainian government for the past 3 years before the war and during the war, I can tell you that, and also have had an experience working in the Azerbaijani government. They had a similar story was the oil and gas revenues, where the major operator is British Petroleum and
Hmm.
other American companies. And it was the same situation basically during the war. So the Ukrainian, my take for Ukraine is the benefits would be um, a lot of technology transfer, which will lack here for this industry specifically. Uh,
You mean to extract the minerals?
yes,
Is that what you mean? Hmm.
to create basically to set up mines and separation plants, because
Hmm.
it's like usually this infrastructure consists of two major infrastructures. And of course, as we know from other countries, like from Congo, Chinese deal in 2007, they have this similar deal. It's not perfect, but it is a precedent. Azerbaijani, British, American, like European deal with oil and gas, and this one could potentially spur the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises that will be serving that industry, like insurance companies, training companies, service providers, etc., suppliers, small or big spare parts manufacturers, etc. So basically, it could create in a long-term ecosystem for the economic growth and SME development here in
Hmm.
Ukraine. It can also lead up to stabilization funds and the state-owned funds for investments, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is like the good side of it. And at the same time, I would add one more positive side of it is if we have vested U.S. interest here, and investment and economic presence, and other, I'm sure that European and maybe Asian companies also will be taking part of it if the deal is as good as I'm like describing it now. Of course, this will have a strong Western and other international economic presence here, which will somehow serve as a catalyst for its security, Ukraine's security. And security, this is like a security guarantee that we are talking about, because
Hmm.
what other security guarantees could be there? Another Budapest memorandum? No, it doesn't work as we see
Right.
it. NATO membership? Well, now let's be realistic. We are not there yet to get accepted. It has been communicated to us, so we understand, we are realistic. So for me, this is a good case, but there are pitfalls and nuances that we really have to take into account.
And what are those?
To develop a mine and to start having like, to reach the level where it will start yielding results and dividends takes like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And each mine costs from $500 million to $1 billion.
Mhm.
So it's a long-term commitment. And
Right.
another key hurdle in Ukraine, we do not have updated geological maps of what we have. The last one was done, I think, right before the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So, and the technology for exploration that was used was old. So we really need a new approach for that, and it will also take time, technology, and investment. Who knows who will do this? The U.S. side, the Ukrainian, etc. It's another key thing. Why? Because United States or Ukraine cannot force private companies to come here and work just because they want it. They have to be interested in it. There has to be an incentive, a commercial incentive for those companies. Because if it was Russia or China, yes, there were like some state-owned enterprises that they can say, you could go and do that and make a loss. It's a political thing, yeah, but we cannot do that.
Right.
Well, neither Ukraine nor America. So we have to incentivize those companies so they understand that the Ukrainian soil does have this lithium, aluminum ore, etc. So, well, these are the pitfalls, and that we really have to take into account. So I think Ukrainian administration, the current or whatever will be the next one, should be careful in maneuvering between the United States on this one, I would say mid to long-term project, and at the same time start already negotiations with the European Union and using their current benevolence to start the infrastructure investments, because this is another important thing, key thing actually, that will also affect that project with minerals, because almost half of Ukraine's electricity infrastructure is destroyed by the Russians or occupied, and it is left in the occupied zone. And a mining industry, if I'm not mistaken, it is consuming like 50% of industrial power globally, and 15% electricity power globally, like when it comes to those heavy industries. So it's energy intensive, and we don't have that capacity either. So that's why we really have to work with everyone, and with financial institutions, with European donors, with American government currently, and with I will reach out to other countries as well. So we really need a lot of technocratic work ahead before this comes to fruition. Yeah. I don't know if I was able to explain
that's very helpful, because this is presented as sort of a rush thing that must be signed, and it'll, I think a lot of the positives that you outlined have been in the discussion, maybe not so much of the pitfalls. Last question then for you, Tamerlan, and maybe the hardest question of all. I just ask your personal assessment, which is, obviously, an end to the war is something I assume is a positive on the face of it, but equally obvious, I suppose, is that it depends what kind of an end it is. To what extent do you find you and those around you are really, really, really anxious for this to stop? And to what extent are you just worried that it's going to stop under the wrong terms? Where's your level of hope?
We are very worried about that. To be honest, I don't want to sound too negative, but I have legitimate grounds to question the technocratic preparedness and professionalism of Zelensky administration in these negotiations Let's,
Hmm.
as I said at the beginning, I'm not taking anyone's side, but I'm just telling you what I think and what many technocrats and professionals like myself with extensive government background think. Because for us, the most important thing is not to sign any paper that will give up our territories, even on the paper. So
Hmm.
for us, the best scenario would be ceasefire agreement, not a peace agreement. These are completely two different things. And so we have time to prepare ourselves, our economy, rebuild the political system, institutions, fight the rampant corruptions that we have right now in Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's at the bottom of Transparency International rankings index. And this is actually true when it comes to the defense industry as well. So we really have to work a lot. But the key thing that I would demand this administration, the Zelensky administration, is not to give up any territories. It will be a hard question and hard task, maybe an impossible task. I'm not naive, but this is very important. If we give up those territories, we don't know what comes next, and the country had been losing since 2014. And if we allow another territory, let's say, give up, then what are the guarantees that we will not have another war?
Right.
Like even if we have like some investment here, it's Russia. We never
Yeah.
know. So this is a concern that we have, but it is very important that they play it well and in a very smart way. So this, I don't know if I was able to answer your question
No,
or
you
not.
did. You did. And you answered all our questions. It's great insights. We really appreciate you joining us, Tamerlan from Kiev. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks so much for being with us at the Cipher Brief.
Thank you, Kate.